Hey guys, tonight we unravel the oldest trick humanity ever played on itself, the invention of time. Picture this. You're standing in the scorching Mesopotamian sun 5,000 years ago, squinting at a stick stuck in the dirt. Its shadow creeps lazily across stone markers, and suddenly your carefree hunter-gatherer ancestors are out of a job. Someone just invented the sundial, and now you're late for wheat harvesting. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your location and local time. It's always fun to see who's listening from the future, or the past, depending on your Wi-Fi speed. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Those early sundials weren't just fancy garden decor. They were humanity's first attempt to bully itself into productivity. The Babylonians, those overachievers, divided daylight into 12 chunks because, of course, they loved the number 12, thanks to their finger-counting system, which included knuckles. Try it. But here's the kicker. Their hours weren't fixed. Summer hours stretched like taffy, while winter ones shrank like wool in hot water. Imagine your workday randomly ballooning to 75 modern minutes because the sun felt like being dramatic. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians or Mesopotamians invented the first sundial. But one thing's clear. Once humans could measure time, they started losing it. The cheeky reality check. You probably wouldn't survive a week in ancient Egypt without a sundial-induced existential crisis. And now for the quirky tidbit. The Romans had seasonal hours too, but they also used water clocks, which froze in winter, boiled over in summer, and were generally as reliable as a weather app. Pliny the Elder once complained that courtroom lawyers exploited water clocks by stuffing them with sludge to buy more arguing time. Time fraud, the original white-collar crime. By the way, ever notice how sundials often bear grim mottos like, "I count only the sunny hours"? Even back then, time was a passive-aggressive guilt trip. Picture this. It's 6th century Europe, and a sleepy monk named Benedict is jolted awake, again, by the sound of a brother banging on a wooden board. The monastery's alarm clock is just a guy with a mallet and zero chill, but it's about to change the world. Benedict's rule demanded prayers at precise intervals, day and night, turning monastic life into humanity's first grueling rehearsal for modern capitalism. You think you're tired? Try waking up for vigils at 2 a.m. because some 1,500-year-old spreadsheet said so. These monks didn't just pray. They became obsessed with measuring the gaps between prayers, jury-rigging candle clocks, water clocks, and eventually the first mechanical clocks. Historians still argue whether clock towers were invented to glorify God or to guilt-trip farmers into paying tithes on time. Here's the mainstream fact. The earliest weight-driven mechanical clock popped up in 1283 in England's Dunstable Priory. It had no face, just bells that rang to summon monks to prayer. But the real plot twist. Once clocks escaped monasteries, they became the ultimate tool for social control. Towns installed them in bell towers, and suddenly, on time meant something. Unless you were a peasant, in which case you were always late. Now for the fringe tidbit. Some medieval clocks allegedly ran on prayer power. A 14th century French monk claimed his monastery's clock ticked faster during devout prayers. Spoiler, it was probably just humidity warping the gears, but try telling that to a sleep-deprived novice. And here's the kicker. Monks accidentally created the modern work week. By parceling time into uniform chunks, they laid the groundwork for factories, railroads, and your boss's obsession with punctuality. The next time you groan at your alarm, blame a 6th century Italian with a savior complex and a mallet. Isaac Newton sits in his Cambridge dorm room, scribbling furiously by candlelight. Outside, an apple falls, or maybe it doesn't, because history loves a good metaphor. What matters is the audacious idea taking shape in his mind. Time as an absolute, unchanging river flowing uniformly through the universe. Fast forward 200 years, and a patent clerk named Einstein would toss Newton's river into a blender with a smirk. You've probably heard the phrase absolute time without realizing how bizarre it really is. Newton imagined time as a cosmic metronome ticking away in the background of existence, indifferent to human drama. His Principia Mathematica treated time and space as rigid scaffolding holding up reality, a comforting thought until you try explaining it to a beam of light. Here's the mainstream fact that shattered Newton's dream. Einstein's 1905 paper on special relativity proved time slows down if you're moving fast enough. GPS satellites actually account for this. Their clocks run slightly faster than earthbound ones because they're orbiting at 14,000 kilometers per hour. Without relativistic corrections, Google Maps would guide you into a lake within minutes. Now for the quirky bit. Newton might have been wrong, but he wasn't entirely wrong. His laws still work perfectly for everyday life. Your dropped toast obeys Newtonian physics, not quantum mechanics. Historians still argue whether Newton would have accepted relativity over a pint at the Eagle pub, Cambridge's favourite science debate venue. And here's the reality check. Einstein's tram daydream in Bern revealed something mind-bending. If you could ride a light beam, time would literally stop for you. Meanwhile, your dog back home would age normally, which explains why pets always act like you've been gone forever. The factory whistle screams at 4:30 a.m., jolting awake entire neighbourhoods of textile workers in 19th century Manchester. Children as young as 6 stumble toward the mill gates, their internal rhythms shattered by this new artificial sunrise. The Industrial Revolution didn't just change how we make things, it rewired humanity's relationship with time itself. You think your 9 to 5 is brutal? Try surviving a 14-hour shift where the machines never tire and the foreman fines you for glancing at the clock. Factory owners didn't just steal workers' labor, they stole their bodily autonomy, replacing sunrise and sunset with the tyranny of the punch clock. Historians still argue whether the steam engine or the mechanical clock did more damage to the human psyche. Here's the mainstream fact that'll make you side-eye your office schedule. The 8-hour workday wasn't some benevolent gift from industrialists. Workers literally died for it. During the 1886 Haymarket Affair in Chicago, labor protesters were hanged for demanding 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for what we will. The trial was so rigged, even the prosecutor admitted the evidence was fake. Now for the bizarre tidbit. Victorian factory owners used knocker-uppers, human alarm clocks, who'd tap on workers' windows with long sticks. Some even used pea shooters to blast windows at precise times. Imagine being woken by a stranger firing dried peas at your bedroom like some deranged, time-observed Cupid. And here's the kicker. Those factory whistles were calibrated to local train schedules, not human needs. Your great-great-grandparents' circadian rhythms were literally set by railroad tycoons. The next time you hit snooze, remember you're rebelling against 200 years of industrial brainwashing. You're standing on a tram in Bern, Switzerland, 1905. The cobblestone streets blur past as Einstein daydreams about racing alongside the tram's shadow. In this mundane moment, a thought experiment ignites. What if time itself warps when you move? The tram rounds a corner, and suddenly the universe tilts. This isn't just physics, it's a full-scale rebellion against common sense. Einstein realized that time isn't a backdrop, it's more like taffy, stretching and compressing based on speed and gravity. The faster you move, the slower your clock ticks compared to someone standing still. GPS satellites prove this daily. Their atomic clocks gain 38 microseconds each day because they're orbiting at 14,000 kilometers, Without constant corrections, your Uber driver would miss your street by 6 miles per day. Historians still argue whether Einstein's barber understood relativity better than his colleagues at the patent office. The quirky truth: the math was so radical that even Einstein needed help from mathematician Marcel Grossmann to fully develop it. Their collaboration birthed equations that made time malleable, a concept so bizarre that when a reporter asked Einstein to explain relativity in one sentence, he reportedly said, "When you sit with a nice girl for 2 hours, it feels like 2 minutes. When you sit on a hot stove for 2 minutes, it feels like 2 hours." Here's the reality check that'll haunt your next flight. If you could circle the Earth in a spaceship at near light speed for a year, you'd return to find everyone you know decades older. Your pet goldfish might outlive you. Time dilation isn't sci-fi, it's been measured with atomic clocks on airplanes. And now for the fringe detail. Some physicists speculate that black holes might twist time so severely that it loops back on itself. Imagine watching your own birth while eating breakfast, a cosmic glitch that makes Monday mornings seem tame. Deep in the quantum realm, particles laugh at our feeble human concepts of cause and effect. Here, an electron can arrive before it leaves, and two entangled particles communicate faster than light, breaking time's supposed speed limit without breaking a sweat. If time is a story, quantum mechanics is the drunk fan fiction version, where all the rules get weird. You've probably heard of Schrödinger's cat, that poor theoretical feline stuck being both alive and dead. But the real quantum party trick is retrocausality, where future events influence the past. In 2012, physicists proved this isn't just stoner philosophy. They delayed a particle's decision about its nature until after scientists had already measured it. The particle basically went, "Oh, you looked, let me adjust my past real quick." Historians still argue whether Einstein was rolling in his grave when quantum entanglement was confirmed. His famous dismissal, "spooky action at a distance," became textbook physics. The mainstream, your smartphone relies on quantum tunneling to work, meaning trillions of electrons are currently violating classical physics in your pocket right now. Now for the brain-melting tidbit. Some interpretations suggest quantum particles don't just move through time, they smear across it. The transactional interpretation proposes that particles send waves both forward and backward in time, like cosmic handshakes between past and future. Imagine if your morning coffee could negotiate with yesterday's bad decision. Here's the reality check. Quantum clocks are so precise, they'd lose less than a second over the entire age of the universe. Yet at this scale, time itself may be pixelated, coming in discrete chunks of 10^44 seconds called Planck time. Below this, the concept of before and after might not even exist. Your existential crisis about being late for work means nothing to a photon. Your liver knows it's 3 a.m. before you do. While you're binge-watching cooking shows, this unappreciated organ is conducting a symphony of enzymes on a strict biological timetable. Scientists now recognize that nearly every cell in your body keeps its own time, and most of them hate your alarm clock. We've been conditioned to think of circadian rhythms as simple sleep-wake cycles, but the truth is far stranger. Your pancreas actually stops processing sugar efficiently after 8 p.m., which is why that midnight snack hits differently. Even your skin cells divide on a schedule with peak regeneration around 4 p.m., meaning cosmetic procedures actually work better in the afternoon. Historians still argue whether the Industrial Revolution or the invention of electric lighting did more damage to our biological clock. Here's the mainstream fact that'll make you rethink your 9 a.m. meetings. When researchers studied tribes without artificial light, they found people naturally woke at sunrise and slept about 6.5 hours with a 60-90-minute nap at midday. The modern 8-hour sleep block probably an artificial construct. Now for the bizarre tidbit. Scientists discovered a woman whose body clock runs on a 25-hour cycle. For her, 9 a.m. feels like 6 a.m. to everyone else. She's not lazy, just living in her own time zone. There's even speculation that some historical night owls like Mozart and Tesla might have had similar genetic quirks. And here's the kicker: when astronauts go to space, their circadian rhythms completely unravel. Without Earth's 24-hour light-dark cycles, their bodies can't agree on what time it is, which explains why space agencies employ sleep scientists to bully astronauts into taking melatonin. The next time you feel jet-lagged, remember, at least you're not trying to sleep while orbiting at 17,500 meters. Picture this. It's November 18, 1883, and every clock in America just lurched forward or backward without warning. Train conductors tear their hair, air passengers miss connections by exactly 17 minutes. Welcome to the day of two noons, when railroad tycoons sliced time into arbitrary zones and humanity collectively lost its bearing. You'd think time zones would follow something logical, like solar position. Instead, we got a system designed to stop trains from crashing. Before 1883, every town kept its own local time, leading to comical train schedules listing 75 different arrival times for a single route. The railroads finally said enough and divided the continent into 4 zones by fiat. Historians still argue whether this was corporate efficiency or psychological warfare against farmers who just wanted to eat lunch when the sun said so. Here's the mainstream fact that'll ruin your next time zone hop. China, a country spanning 5 geographical time zones, uses just one official time, Beijing time. This means in western Xinjiang, the sun rises at 10 a.m. in winter, and kids walk to school in pitch darkness. Meanwhile, neighboring Afghanistan sets its clocks 30 minutes off everyone else, because why not? Now for the conspiracy theory turned real. The original time zone map was literally drawn by a railroad clerk named William F. Allen using a special time zone pen. His system was adopted so quickly that many towns didn't get the memo. Some Midwest cities unknowingly lived in the wrong zone for decades. And here's the existential kicker. Time zones make international business possible, but annihilate your body clock. Frequent flyer cells actually age faster due to chronic jet lag. The next time you struggle with a midnight Zoom call to Singapore, blame a 19th century train nerd with a protractor. Your brain isn't a historian, it's a creative director. Every time you recall your first kiss or that cringe-worthy school play, your neurons don't replay the event, they reconstruct it, splicing together fragments like a Hollywood editor. Memory doesn't preserve time, it reinvents it, complete with plot holes and special effects. Neuroscientists now know that recalling an event physically alters the memory itself. That's why your childhood home seems smaller when you visit as an adult. Your brain isn't retrieving the original memory, but rather last time you remembered it, like making a photocopy of a photocopy until the details blur. Historians still argue whether this explains why every generation insists their music was better. Nostalgia might just be bad data compression. Here's the mainstream fact that'll make you question your autobiography. In 2013, MIT researchers implanted false memories in mice. They made rodents remember getting shocked in a room they'd never visited. Human studies show we're just as gullible. Tell someone they got sick eating strawberry ice cream as a kid, and 25% will swear it happened. Now for the trippy tidbit. People with highly superior autobiographical memory, HSM, can recall every day in detail, but often struggle with patterns and meaning. It's like having a perfect mental photo album with no caption. Meanwhile, some amnesia patients lose chronological memory, but retain the ability to tell fictional stories in perfect tense, proving time and narrative might be separate brain function. And here's the kicker. Dementia research reveals that losing recent memories can make sufferers feel unstuck in time. One patient insisted it was 1945 daily, yet could perfectly play 1980s pop songs on piano. Your brain doesn't just tell time, it soundtracks it, often out of order. Your smartphone doesn't just tell time, it shatters it into a million digital fragments. Where our ancestors marked days by the sun's arc, We now live in a world of infinite scrolling, push notifications, and algorithmic timelines that rearrange reality itself. Digital time isn't a river, it's a tsunami of micro-moments, each vying for your splintered attention. Think about your last quick Instagram check. What felt like 2 minutes was likely 12, a phenomenon called time distortion that tech companies engineer deliberately. Infinite scroll interfaces and variable reward schedules. Those unpredictable likes and notifications hijack your brain's dopamine system, creating what psychologists call time compression. Historians still argue whether the invention of the mechanical clock or the smartphone did more damage to human temporal perception. Here's the mainstream fact that'll make you side-eye your screen time report. Studies show heavy social media users underestimate elapsed time by 30. Your brain literally can't process digital time accurately, which explains why you still feel surprised when Netflix asks, "Are you still watching at 3 a.m.?" Now for the dystopian detail. Stock traders already experience time differently, thanks to algorithmic trading. High-frequency transactions happen in microseconds, faster than human neurons can fire. Some trading firms even lay fiber optic cables in straight lines at enormous cost, because curved ones slow data by millionths of a second. In Wall Street's digital trenches, time isn't money, it's more than money. And here's the existential kicker. The average smartphone user touches their device 2,617 times daily. That's once every 33 seconds in waking hours. A rhythmic interruption that fractures time into useless confetti. The next time you lose an hour to TikTok, remember your caveman brain never evolved to handle a fire hose of timeless content. You drop acid in 1966 and suddenly understand eternity. The Beatles' Tomorrow Never Knows plays at half speed while a nearby clock melts like Dali's worst nightmare. This isn't just a bad trip, it's a crash course in how flimsy time perception really is. Psychedelics don't distort time, they reveal how much of it was a construct to begin with. Neuroscientists now know psilocybin and LSD don't just alter consciousness, they disintegrate the brain's timekeeping networks. fMRI scans show psychedelics decouple the default mode network, your mental clock, from sensory input, creating what users describe as time dilation or eternal nap. One study found psilocybin makes minutes feel 16% longer, which explains why your friend swears that 5-minute guitar solo lasted for hours. Historians still argue whether the 1960s counterculture's time obsession birthed modern mindfulness, or just really long jam bands. Here's the mainstream fact that'll reshape your dreams. REM sleep creates similar time warps. Ever had a dream that felt like days, only to wake and find 20 minutes passed? That's because your sleeping brain compresses and expands timelines like a cinematic montage, with your hippocampus as the erratic film editor. Now for the bizarre lab result. In 2011, researchers gave rats ketamine and made them estimate time intervals. The drugged rodents became more accurate, suggesting our sober brains might overcorrect temporal perception. Maybe reality is the real hallucination. And here's the kicker. Amazonian shamans use ayahuasca to experience ancestral time, where past, present, and future coexist. Western science now confirms this isn't just mysticism. Psychedelics activate ancient brain regions that process time holistically. The next time you check your watch, remember, sober time is just one setting on the cosmic dial. In Mandarin, the future isn't ahead of you, it's below. When native speakers say next week, they literally gesture downward, while the past is up. This isn't just poetic phrasing, it's evidence that time is a story we tell with our bodies, and every culture scripts it differently. Linguists have discovered radical differences in how societies conceptualize time. The Amara people of the Andes point behind themselves when speaking of the future. Their language visualizes time as a landscape where the unknown future is unseen, like terrain at your back. Meanwhile, Swedish and German speakers tend to describe time in terms of physical length, a long vacation rather than quantity, much time, subtly altering how they experience duration. Historians still argue whether these differences stem from geography, religion, or some deeper cognitive risk. Here's the mainstream fact that'll mess with your productivity. Cultures with event time orientation, like Mediterranean regions, judge punctuality by natural cues. You arrive when the occasion demands. Compare this to industrialized clock time societies, where 3:15 p.m. means 3:15 p.m., even if the meeting could have been an email. Now for the mind-bending tidbit. The Paraha tribe in the Amazon has no words for numbers beyond few and many, and no concept of linear time. They live in what linguists call an eternal present, which might explain why they're famously resistant to stress disorders. And here's the kicker. Bilinguals literally perceive time differently depending on which language they're using. Spanish, English speakers estimating durations will give longer answers when prompted in Spanish, mucho tiempo, versus English, a lot of time. Your watch may be Swiss, but your brain's clock is cultural software. At the edge of a black hole, time doesn't just slow down, it gives up. Picture this. You're falling toward the event horizon against all better judgment, and from your perspective, seconds pass normally. But to someone watching safely from afar, your descent appears to freeze in place. You become a living still life, stretched across eternity like cosmic taffy. This isn't sci-fi, it's exactly what Einstein's equations predict. Black holes are nature's ultimate time disruptors. Their gravitational pull is so intense that they warp space-time like a lead weight on a trampoline. Near the singularity, the very concepts of before and after lose meaning. Historians still argue whether Einstein himself fully believed in black holes. He once tried to mathematically prove they couldn't exist, despite his own theories suggesting otherwise. Here's the mainstream fact that'll haunt your next stargazing session. The supermassive black hole at our galaxy's center, Sagittarius A*, has already slowed time by about 30%. If you could orbit it, you'd age slower than everyone back home. The ultimate anti-aging hack, assuming you avoid being spaghettified first. Now for the quantum weirdness. Stephen Hawking theorized that black holes might actually create new universes inside themselves, where time runs backward from our perspective. Imagine a reality where cause and effect are flipped. People are born old and die as babies. Shattered teacups assemble themselves, and your dog unburies his toys. And here's the existential kicker. Due to cosmic expansion, 97% of galaxies will eventually disappear beyond our light horizon. Future civilizations might look up at an empty sky, with no clues that time ever existed beyond their local cluster. The universe's final act could be a lonely amnesia. The Mayan calendar didn't predict the end of the world. It predicted the end of a world, while 2012 doomsday preppers stockpiled canned goods. Anthropologists quietly noted something more profound. The Mesoamerican long count calendar wasn't counting down to apocalypse, but to renewal. Every 5,025 years, their timekeeping system hit reset like a cosmic odometer, reflecting a worldview where time wasn't linear, but cyclical, a series of nested wheels turning within wheels. Modern calendars seem objective, but they're political weapons in disguise. When Pope Gregory XIII chopped 10 days from October 5082 to fix the Julian calendar's drift, Protestant England refused the update for 70 years, meaning Shakespeare and Cervantes died on the same date, but different calendar days. Historians still argue whether the Gregorian reform was about Easter dating or papal supremacy. Here's the mainstream fact that'll ruin your next birthday. Your age varies by calendar system. Under the traditional Chinese system, you're born at age 1 and gain a year each Lunar New Year, meaning a December baby could technically be 2 weeks old but 2 years on paper. Meanwhile, the Islamic Hijri calendar is 11 days shorter than the solar year, so your age in Mecca might be 3% older than in London. Now for the bureaucratic absurdity. In 1923, Greece switched calendars overnight, with newspapers reading February 15 became March. Citizens rioted, not over lost days, but because landlords demanded a full month's rent for the missing fortnight. Time may be abstract, but rent is brutally concrete. And here's the kicker: the French Revolution tried to decimalize time itself. With 10-hour days and 100-minute hours, clocks were built, but humans couldn't adapt to metric time. Your circadian rhythm is apparently more stubborn than Robespierre. Imagine a world where meetings begin when the last person arrives, where trains depart only when everyone is comfortably seated, where your age is counted not by the number of birthdays you've endured, but by the summers you've truly lived. This isn't some utopian fantasy, it's how entire civilizations have experienced time for millennia. The Hopi language, for instance, doesn't even have tenses for past or future, only variations of manifested and manifested. Polynesian navigators don't measure ocean voyages in hours or days, but in star sleeps, the number of nights spent under shifting constellations. What if the real colonization wasn't of land, but of time itself? What if we've been conditioned to see time as a tyrant rather than a rhythm? For most of human history, time was elastic, shaped by seasons, sunlight, and communal needs. The Industrial Revolution didn't just change how we work, it changed how we exist in time. Factory whistles and punch clocks didn't merely regiment labor, they rewired our nervous systems to equate productivity with self-worth. Now neuroscience confirms what our bodies have always known. This artificial time scarcity is making us sick. Chronic time anxiety, that gnawing sense of being perpetually behind, floods our bodies with cortisol, which over time erodes memory centers in the hippocampus. The time famine phenomenon, the persistent feeling of having no time despite objective abundance, correlates with measurable gray matter reduction in brain scans. Meanwhile, the Timane people of Bolivia, whose language lacks any word for late, exhibit virtually no dementia until extreme old age. Historians still argue whether the Industrial Revolution's most insidious theft was of labor, leisure, or the very experience of time itself. Here's the revolutionary data point that could change everything. When Denmark experimentally shifted to a 4-day workweek, productivity didn't drop. It rose by 2. Iceland replicated these results on a national scale, with 85% of workers reporting better work-life balance without sacrificing output. Even more telling, participants consistently described feeling like they'd gained time despite working fewer hours. This isn't just workplace reform, it's evidence that our relationship with time has been pathological. Nature offers its own corroboration. Honeybees with artificially disrupted circadian rhythms exhibit 60% shorter lifespans, their tiny bodies quite literally burning out faster. Your smartphone might tell you it's 2:15 p.m., but your cells know that's a social construct. Now for the quiet rebellion unfolding in Italy's slow cities movement. In towns like Orvieto and Bra, urban planners have systematically removed traffic lights, replacing them with shared piazzas where pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers negotiate movement through eye contact and gesture. The results defy conventional wisdom. Accident rates dropped by 30%, and residents reported significantly lower stress levels. But the most fascinating outcome, people began experiencing time differently. Without the constant stop-start of traffic signals, the rhythm of daily life became more fluid, more human. Cafes stayed open until the last conversation naturally concluded, not until some arbitrary closing time. This isn't nostalgia, it's neuroscience. When our environment stops fragmenting attention with artificial time markers, our brains default to older, more organic temporal processing. The implications ripple outward. Schools in Germany experimenting with time-agnostic learning. No bells, no rigid periods, found students mastered material 25% faster. Hospitals implementing flex-time nursing shifts saw medication errors drop by nearly half. Even corporate America is grudgingly acknowledging the data. Microsoft Japan's trial of 4-day work weeks recorded a 40% productivity boost. The common thread: When we stop treating time as a finite commodity to be spent or wasted and start treating it as a medium we inhabit, everything changes. Consider the radical temporality of parenthood. New parents often describe the first year with a baby as both endless and fleeting, a paradox that reveals time's true nature. There are no productive hours during night feedings, yet these moments imprint deeper than any business quarter. Romantic relationships follow similar rules. The couples most likely to stay together aren't those who schedule regular date nights, but those who cultivate timeless time, unstructured hours where clocks become irrelevant. This isn't poetic license, it's observable in brain scans. During flow states or deep connection, our neural timekeeping networks actually downregulate. Love, it turns out, operates on its own chronometry. As we reach the end of our journey together, here's the gentle truth your smartwatch will never tell you. Your first memory and your final breath are closer than they appear. The linear timeline we've been sold is a convenient fiction. What actually exists is a series of expanding and contracting moments, some blazing with significance, others dissolving like mist. The afternoon you spent watching clouds with a childhood friend occupies more neural real estate than entire years of commutes. That spontaneous road trip at midnight lives brighter in your bones than a decade of staff meeting. Time isn't slipping away, it's accumulating in unexpected reservoirs. Every genuine laugh etches itself into your cells, stretching the moment far beyond its clock time duration. Every act of real creativity bends deadlines like space-time around a black hole. And love exists outside schedules entirely, which is why you can meet someone for coffee and suddenly realize 4 hours have vanished, or why holding a loved one's hand during their final moments can make a minute feel infinite. So tonight, as you hover between wakefulness and sleep, consider this invitation. What if you measured your days not in hours crossed off a planner, but in star sleeps, not in productivity metrics, but in fully inhabited The cosmos keeps time in supernovae and glacial drifts. You're allowed a rhythm that honors your humanity. After all, the only real time we ever have is now. The fan hums its quiet lullaby as we return from the edges of time. Whether it's an illusion or the universe's deepest rhythm, one truth remains: you are here now, listening in the dark. Your breath sinking with centuries of wanderers who also chase time's shadow. Let your thoughts drift like sundial shadows across linen sheets. The past is memory, the future imagination, but this moment, this shared stillness, is the only real time we ever have. Close your eyes, dear traveler. The cosmos keeps its own time, and for tonight, so can you.